We often think courage is loud, that it lives on stages, in speeches, and grand gestures. But in truth, courage often just whispers. It's the quiet decision to try, to keep going, to speak up, to build something from nothing, even when nobody's watching yet. Back in episode 86, I explored what I call the quiet commitment, the first of the 7 C's, the one that starts it all. Today, to mark episode 100, I want to give you that word, courage, but I want to give it a face, actually 3 of them this time. Each of these individuals has chosen courage in their own way. One of them built a brokerage from scratch when the odds were stacked against him. One built a brand with nothing but a phone and a big vision. And one chose to tell the truth about a past that could have silenced her forever. Now, these stories, they're all different, but their message is the same. What that is courage changes everything. I'm excited. Welcome to another re-education experience episode. Should we begin? Let's do it. Tamir Poleg, born in Israel, still living in Israel, decided to leave behind his successful wholesaling business in real estate to build something that didn't exist yet, a brokerage that would do things totally different. That one day idea became a global movement, one that leaned on culture where agents worked hard but were kind and collab, one where technology meets humanity in its endeavors, one where the power of we is much bigger than me, with its agent ownership model, and one that would empower its agents and the consumers they work with modern day AI-driven tools. It's quite a mouthful, but it's happening. Where real is now is certainly not where the beginning was, but it is here now because of one courageous man. Tamir, my friend, welcome back to the show on this super special episode.
Thank you, Darren. Happy to be here and actually honored to be here. So thank you for choosing me.
Let's do it. Let's dig right in because I told you we'd have a few questions. Can I ask you, when I frame this, what gave you originally that courage to walk away kind of from the familiar that you had kind of built and you had been doing for a while, the successful business that you were running, and then go ahead and start what we've got with Real from scratch? Can you remember back to those days?
Yeah, it was more than 11 years ago. I think that it was a combination of a few things. My background was in real estate and technology, so I knew that I wanted to stay in real estate and do something with technology to help real estate and specifically real estate agents. So that's number one. Number two, the fact that back then I already knew that I cannot work for somebody else. So I
Mm.
needed to create my own reality. Um, and then number three, I was going through a beginning of a divorce and I needed to find something to do. So I needed a job basically. So if you combine, I need a job, I cannot work for anyone else, and I'm passionate about real estate and technology, that brings you to just start a startup in the space. Um, but I think that beyond all that, it came from a very true passion to help real estate agents build a better future for themselves. Just because I know so many of them and I've known so many of them, and I know that agents are the people that make this industry tick. They are the ones that make dreams come true for Americans, Canadians, people around the world. And I thought and I felt that they were underappreciated and they deserve better. So all of those things just, you know, um, grew up to this energy that I had to go ahead and dive into the water and build something. Um, yeah.
There must have been some fear there around, could you pull this off? Like, what am I getting myself into? Um, or was it just, I use the term, the pull of your purpose is stronger than the push of your fear. Does that resonate with that journey a little bit with you?
Yes and no. I can understand the sentence, but I can tell you that the word fear does not exist in my life.
Mm.
I eliminated it from my life about almost 20 years ago. And I think that it's probably the outcome of a lot of different experiences that I had throughout life. As you mentioned, I grew up in Israel. My dad was a general in the army, so I didn't see him very much. I served. I grew in a place where every few months or every few years there's a war, so you have to adapt to that as well. So I think that danger was around me throughout my life at,
Mm,
at different places. And at some point, I realized that the majority of the decisions that we make are based on fear. And the majority of the decisions that you make based on fear are the wrong decisions because you're not thinking about the upside, you're thinking about the downside. You're thinking about what if this doesn't work? What if something happens? Instead of thinking, what if it actually works? What if
mm,
it's going to be better than I anticipated? So I think that at some point where I suffered enough pain in my life and at the same time had enough wisdom to try and analyze what life is about, I just completely eliminated the word fear. So I think that when I started Real a little bit over 11 years ago, fear was not a part of it. It was just, okay, um, how fast can I make it happen? And I didn't have a clue. I thought that, it's going to take 3 years and we're going to build the most amazing brokerage in the world. And
right.
we're 11 years in and we're just at the beginning. So I think that, sometimes not having fear is also a way to cope with extreme challenges. Because I think that if you're if you do have some component of fear and you're very logical, you would probably not be an entrepreneur, or you would probably not try to build big things because you would probably give up along the way. So I'm happy that fear doesn't exist for me.
Right. I think, you've got these circumstances that build towards that and that have kind of allowed you to reframe it in a different way. I went at it
Yep.
at a little softer. I went to say courage is moving, not because fear is absent for a lot of people that might not have gone through maybe what you have or been able to do to that level, but just to move in spite of it, right? It's just to go forward regardless of it there and just let's just know that it is there. That is humanity. And we just move anyways. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yeah, and you just you cannot have it manage you. You
hmm,
cannot let it manage you. I mean, fear is okay to have as part of an overall set of emotions and set of things that help you make decisions. But fear cannot control you, cannot control your decision-making process, cannot control your life, should not be there all the time, very, very, strongly. Um, so again, and it can be managed for some people.
people must not have always believed in the model as you were presenting it to folks, as you were getting out there and had this vision. You said you wanted it done in 3 years, like you said, and boom, we're going to have take over the world. But that didn't, I'm sure, happen along the whole parts. There's parts where you've seen massive growth and everyone seems to be saying yes, but I'm sure that's not
Yeah.
the case.
Yeah.
What kept you going when that continued when that happened? And maybe give us a little context.
Yeah, well, people started hearing about Real probably in 2021 while we started the company in 2014. So there was a period of 7 years where we were really grinding and nobody noticed us. Um, And throughout those years, I heard so many no's, and this is not gonna work, and you've got it wrong, and this is the wrong idea. We were raising money, so obviously you meet a lot of VCs, investors. I met hundreds of them, and just a few invested. So you can imagine that 99 point something percent of them just told me no in this way or another. Some of them were nice, some of them were not really nice. Um, if I had to sum it up, I would say that two things kept me going. One is this strong belief that we are doing something right. I truly believed in what we're trying to build and in the value that we deliver to our agents. And I knew that if you do the right thing, eventually things will start going your way, even though for many, many years they didn't. I
Mm,
knew that we should just do the right thing. And eventually, if you pour enough value into people, if you build enough value into people, um, there will be sufficient value that will be built for you and the company in return. So that was number one. The number two, which is a little bit more practical and simple and kind of real life example, I just could not afford myself to give up. So think about my situation. I had three little young kids going through a divorce that took too many years. It became a little bit unpleasant to ugly. Um, I did not have a plan B. I just had to make it work. I could not find myself, sleeping on the streets with three young kids. Like I didn't have anything at that time because I kind of gave everything to my ex-wife, to the divorce lawyers, to anyway,
Yeah.
a complicated situation. So I just had to make it work. I didn't have a plan B. I couldn't afford to lose, to be honest. So I strongly believed in what we were trying to do, and I just couldn't afford myself
Yeah.
to lose.
Totally. I use the term anchoring your why, and it sounds like that was so ingrained in you, like the passion for this mission, the purpose just pushed you and pulled you and did everything you needed to do. And I've been through
Yeah.
those scenarios too. So
And by the way, I'm talking about myself, but there's a group of people that continued to be there and support. I had investors, I had co-founders. So it wasn't just about me. Yes, I was the CEO of the company and I had to make the decisions, but it was a group of people that kind of hang on and push forward and didn't give up.
well, it's amazing to have that with you. Was there a moment then that you just said, I'm quitting? This like you were like
Oh.
right on the verge and you're like, I'm on the edge and this is over. And then how did you get past it? Or maybe you didn't hit that wall.
When you're saying it this way, it makes me feel like I might be a little bit crazy because I didn't have even a single moment like that. So I don't know, maybe I'm not completely normal. There was a moment in time in 2019 where we were left with less than $50,000 in the bank, and I had to lay off everybody. We were left with about less than eight employees. So it was it was as if the company was 90 something percent dead at this
Right.
point. And I couldn't raise new money. We didn't have enough. We had about 3 weeks of runway. I had to go back to my original investors and ask them to put more money in a company that's not growing, is not attractive. Nobody else would put money into. Hard conversation. And then one of them, who became very close to me, just advised me to take a couple of days and think whether this is something I want to continue and pursue, or maybe just, give up and say, okay, I can be more successful doing something else. And that was the closest moment, or the first time that I asked myself this question, just because he asked me to ask myself this question. But the answer was immediate and very strong. I got back to him and I said, I'm going to make it work. I don't know how I'm going to make it work. I don't really have a plan at the moment, but please trust me. I will find a way and I will make it work. This was in the middle of 2019. In 2020, we went public. A few months later, the company was trading at about $500 million valuation. So in 2019, they gave me money at a $2 million valuation just to save the company and buy us a few more months. And we turned it into $500 million within
Holy
about a
smokes.
year. So yeah, it was a good success story.
Totally. I mean, I use the term in the podcast, shrinking the leap, right? You don't know the whole journey. Right? You don't know
Right.
it. You were chosen at that point. You had to have what's the next series of uncomfortable steps that were next. Not how you would get to 500 million, right? It was like, how do I prove 2 million is actually the valuation at the minimum? And so, I mean, that is quite the journey. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
How
But you're running a very successful business, which you have built. And you know that there are points in time where it gets difficult and it's tough. But what separates you and other people is the fact that you did not give up. You you knew that you can win. And even when the market is difficult and even when your agents are struggling, you know that you are the right leader in the right place, building the right thing, bringing the right value, and that you can weather those storms. And I think that belief that you can weather any storm gives you a lot of energy and
Oh,
gives you a lot of advantage over others.
that's a great segue to this question where it says, seeing where the company sits today now, and then thinking back to those early courage moments. Um, what does that mean to you when you think back to like you in those seats, you in those moments, now where we are? And I know you say we're just getting started, and we all say that here, and we believe it in our core. But like that early courage means and meant something to us. Anything comes to mind when you think about yourself in those moments?
Yeah, I still feel like that guy 2 years, 5 years, 10 years ago who's trying to build something big. So I'm not tapping myself on the shoulder saying, hey, we've got to this milestone or that milestone. That the the eagerness, the hunger still exists. So I'm not really spending time reflecting and saying, wow, those were difficult moments and everything is so great right now because you know that every day you have new challenges. And it reminds me that in our early days at Real, I would hear all the time about other entrepreneurs that I know that raised $100 million or went IPO. And there's a little bit of jealousy asking yourself, okay, how did they do it? What steps should I be taking in order to get to that place? But now when, we're at that place where we're publicly traded and we have a lot of momentum, I understand that you still wake up in the morning to a set of problems and issues and things that you have to figure out. You have more responsibility as you grow. You're responsible for more people's lives, for the finances of more families that this company or that rely on this company for their livelihood. Um, so I don't think that it gets easier. But at the same time, I think that all of those things that all of those challenges early on that we overcame gives you the confidence when the next challenge arrives.
Totally.
Because good times don't last forever. We know that. And now
Mm.
we're going through a great period, but I know that it will end at some point and there will be challenges. And I think that it's important to know that, hey, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, we went through a period that was super difficult, super tough, and we made it happen. And we made it happen because we continued to believe we did the right things. We didn't cut corners. We thought long term, we thought about delivering value. And I think that when the next challenge arrives, we'll do exactly the same thing. So um, I think that past learnings are important in order to teach you a lesson about how to cope with future challenges.
Would it be safe to say that courage is kind of like a muscle, right? It grows through motion, right? It grows through the usage of it so that now you're better positioned. We're all better positioned to weather this next storm whenever it comes, and for however long it goes.
Yeah, and courage, there might be a fine line between courage and stupidity sometimes. And this is where logic and experience should come in and kind of keep you in check and make sure that you don't drift into that stupidity which comes from
Right.
overconfidence or too much courage.
A little bit of blindness maybe to the
Yeah,
reality, right?
exactly.
If you had, I don't know if you could, but if you had to describe how you see courage in 3 words, could you come up with three that land for you?
Maybe it's counterintuitive, but the first thing that comes to mind when I think about courage is vulnerability.
Mm.
I think that people who are truly courageous are people that are extremely vulnerable and are not afraid to expose themselves and are not afraid to be hurt. Um, if if you're confident that you can overcome any situation, any challenge that life throws at you, that builds tremendous courage. So I would say vulnerability is number one. Um, I think that courage also has to do with putting others ahead of you or others' interests ahead of yours. Just saying, okay, I will make sure they're fine. I will protect them. I will be fine. And maybe I'll get hurt, maybe I'll lose money. I'll I'll be able to pick myself up from that situation. So I think that courage is also um, the understanding that others should come first.
So like selfless almost. Yeah,
Yeah, in many ways. Um,
amazing.
I don't have a third one for you.
That's okay. It's two isn't enough. Finally, if I could leave you, and this is one question I'm asking all three that are going to get a B together on this. If you could leave one sentence about courage to a message that somebody that you've never met, maybe doesn't even know the story, um, what would you say? Where would that go? Right? Because of course, not
Wow.
everybody has our context.
Uh, I don't know if this is what you meant, but the thing that comes to mind is if I had to say something to somebody I haven't met, is telling them you're not alone. Because feeling alone is what makes people break when things are hard. And I know that every person on this planet has someone who cares for them, has someone who they can rely on. They sometimes they need to reach out and ask for help. But I think that understanding that you're not alone and you don't have to go through things on your own by yourself. And there's always someone who's willing to support, to listen, to offer help, to give you any kind of help is super powerful. And sometimes that's all that you need. So I would tell people, yes, find the courage within yourselves, but also know that you're not alone.
You won't be doing this alone. I love that.
Yeah,
That's a really great one. I mean, Tamir, having you on again, being able to share parts of your story, maybe parts that you get to share a little bit, but also some of the depth that comes with the kind of the unseen stuff behind the scenes that like a word like courage may pull out. It was kind of the hope here. And I really appreciate you being vulnerable as you have been with it. And um, Tamir's story to me reminds us that it's not always like really loud fire when you think of courage, that sometimes it's the word that he used a lot, which is it's just belief, right? Steadfast belief. And it's building brick by brick, right? Brick by brick, no by no, just like he shared when no one else, or maybe very few, see the vision yet. So, um, super grateful for you, Tamir, to be on. I know your time is incredibly valuable, and that's all the questions I had for you. So,
appreciate the opportunity there. And this is an amazing topic, by the way. And both Ed and Megan are amazing human beings. So I'm honored to be in that group.
oh, of course. Yes. Thank you so much for doing it. And I guess I'll see you in a couple weeks, sir. That's all I really had. So, we are going to sell that thing out and make sure it's a blockbuster. And I'll do my part on that too. So,
Amazing. See you soon.
all right, sir. Catch you later.
Thanks.
Tamir's story reminds us that courage isn't always fire. Sometimes it's belief. Sometimes it's building brick by brick when no one else sees the vision yet. My second guest, creative courage, showing up before it's popular. Some agents, as we know, build their businesses behind the scenes. But Ed Stulak built his way out in public, on social media, in front of strangers before anybody knew his name. But that too, as we know, takes courage. Now he's a real estate team leader, a growth ambassador with us at Real. He's an international keynote speaker and an author to boot. Welcome, my friend. Welcome, Ed, to the show.
Thank you. What an intro.
How does that feel when you hear that kind of stuff?
It's not every day that I hear that. So it's like, wow, damn, I did those things. You're right. It's pretty cool. No, it's really cool. It's really cool. But I'm so honored that I even get to be able to hear that I did that. That's so cool. So thank you for acknowledging it.
It's pretty wild. What was your first leap? We've spoken offline that this is part of my 7C series, and the word courage is the C1. It's kind of C1 meaning step one, right? Step one to make a step forward at all. Can you think back? What was your first leap into courage, where you feel the courage was really bottled up and needed as a young agent? And give us a little context on how long you've been in this business, and maybe even how old you are, if you're willing to share.
I don't know.
And then just say, okay, like that first leap to really put yourself out there as you have. Can you think back to that journey?
I know exactly the day of when that was. And at the moment, I'm 31. I'm 31 years old. And when I was about 18/19 years old, I was sitting on my parents' couch in their living room after I just ended my hockey career at Penn State University after a blow to the shoulder, after I failed all my science classes for pre-med and for dentistry and kinesiology and all these things that I was studying that my parents wanted me to study. Not me, but my parents did. So I thought
Mm.
I did. And I'm sitting on the couch rethinking life. And this first leap that you're talking about, I think is so important. And all those things that you said about me, which sound awesome, wouldn't have started or wouldn't have gotten to this point if it wasn't for that day. And what led me to my first leap was following what made my heart happy and what it made it sing. And that was music. Honestly,
Mm.
music really, I don't know why. I just EDM music specifically, I'll be real, right? Like it was EDM, electronic dance music, something that makes me want to move and like feel good. And there have been so many songs back then when it was what, 2000, 12, 13, 14, like those were big years of the EDM world. And that's when I was so inspired by it. But what do I mean by that? By music. My heart was so happy when I had heard music. I wanted to be in it. I just wanted to be in the music scene. And that was my first leap.
Mm.
I jumped into the music scene to learn about that creative world. Because I know I was a creative guy and I'm listening to all these songs and I'm like, I could do something like this. This is so fun and I love it. Fast forward though, not to go through the whole journey here because it's not as important as the next steps, right? Which were which we're realizing that regardless if it's the music scene, regardless if it's you're in the plumbing world or you're an artist or a model or a technician or a teacher it doesn't matter. Every single person in that category needs a presence, needs a brand of some sort. Everyone's got one in every industry. And that got me really intrigued with how to build one
Mm.
for myself. So fast forward though, even some more, I got into real estate. So how long am I in real estate? Now it's about to be 10 years. I got
Oh,
into
wow.
it around 21 years old, something of that sort. So not too long after my realization, my leap of faith, right? I jumped and I said, let's try it out, screw it. And so I got into real estate only to realize soon after that it's all this stuff that I've been learning since the days of getting into music and learning that you have to have a presence, you have to build a brand. I realized real estate professionals don't necessarily have that. And if they do have it, it's stuck in the old routines, the old ways, the yellow pages, right? That we like to say.
Yeah,
Like you gotta get out of that. So that's what brought me to, where we're today, hopping on podcasts and talking and chatting and like inspiring the world of just getting out there, being creative. So
totally.
first leap was music, which is totally nothing to do with real estate, but
Do
it's because
doing that
yeah,
and having that realization so young and that willingness to go and chart kind of a course that when we think back ish 10-ish years ago, that it was really rare. Like you said, there wasn't a lot of folks that had been able, at least in our industry, that have been able to build a brand yet, right? Like the brands existed, the big box, but like the individual agent brand was pretty much never, never around, especially from a social and a digital format, maybe locally in somebody's community. And you said, well, screw it, I'm going to do it anyways, right?
that's it. It's just let's try it out. Let's see what I can do with this stuff. Everyone needs it. Everyone needs to be on, in a sense, social media and just the new ways of marketing and branding yourself. And maybe someone's listening or watching this and saying, I don't need social. I'm not
Right.
saying you have to. I'm just saying if you really want to prosper in today's world and really get out there to the masses, that's the way to, expose yourself, right? The book, my name of the book, like just expose yourself, get out there. So the best way is to do it through social media and just these online platforms. But yeah, yeah, no, it's been a fun journey. It's been a fun journey.
Did you ever, and again, this is like a simple question, but did you ever feel like people judged you for building this brand online early in the business when they're like, who are you? And you've got the traditional folks around you. Tell me
Well,
about that, because that is a scary world. And it's also a thing that stops a lot of folks from trying to do what you achieved early. Can you
right.
speak to that judgment? And then I guessing in the context of like the courage to keep pushing through that.
Yeah. People still judge. People still judge today. It's okay. I was talking to my best friend yesterday, Sal Volo. We were just walking and talking, just having a heart to heart because those guys need that from time to time. Isn't this month National Men's Awareness? So we were chatting, having a heart to heart, and I'm like, dude, life is a game. Just play it how you want to, but enjoy it how you want to. Whatever you do that makes you happy and maybe those around you happy and doesn't hurt anyone, dude, have a fun time. Screw it. Like, we're not here for a long time. Enjoy it. It's a party. And yes, sometimes, the cops come in and bust it and, ruin it. But like, it's okay. It's all right. Like, you gotta get back up and just like revise it a little bit. Have fun with it though. Make your heart happy and sing and be loud and be proud. And so my point to that, why I say that, is because the whole time I'm creating social media content, I'm thinking, is this content going to serve someone, help someone, value someone, entertain someone, make them happy, make them laugh, make them smile, make them cry? What is it going to be that is going to be the result of this content? And in my brand, personally, I like to make people feel good and teach them something, but also make them laugh and feel like, oh, you know what, that's a cool guy, that's a funny guy. I like that. There's a reason why I, vibe with stand-up comedians. There's a reason why a lot of, they say laughter is best medicine. It's true. So for a long time, I created content, and sometimes it was pushing the edge. I'm like, you know what, I don't know if this is going to be necessarily good, but I'm happy with it. I know it's going to make some other happy people out there. Let's try it. Let's do it. And that's been the mindset since day one of me picking up the phone, creating something, throwing it out there, and seeing how it performs. And I still do that
Yeah.
till today. I don't necessarily mind what people think. And you know what? Those that are listening and say, well, I don't know if I want to create that content because my clients are watching or maybe my prospects are watching. Yeah, yeah. And the wrong ones will not like it. And the right ones will reach out and vibe with you, and they'll say, "Wow, that was so funny. Like, are you gonna do that when we're showing a house? Are you gonna do like pull out the phone and make a video about, they vibe with it, they like it, and that's what makes this business fun. I have a handful of clients right now that all follow me on TikTok and Instagram, and they're all joking around with me every day. Every day, they're like, "Yo, dude, are you gonna do this?" Or sending me like that's relationship building, and
Totally.
and that's why I'm happy with it. So I don't really mind what people think. I'm cool with it. I'm happy with it. It's not hurting anyone, so that's my answer.
The willingness for you to kind of like be fully exposed, like your book, right? And just be in the light in alignment with who you want to be versus what we know so many agents do is they stay in the comfort bubble of what we believe the real estate agent to be, right? And has to play this game. And if we're going to go online, it's very much like in these boxes. And as you and I know, when people do that, the social side doesn't resonate almost with anybody, right? It falls on deaf ears, and agents have struggles with, is this even a medium for me? Because they're not doing what you've been able to do, which was stand loud, proud, and all you in the limelight. Is that fair to say?
Definitely is.
Permission to suck. I mentioned this in the actual episode for Courage that I was trying to give listeners and myself, because I hold back to give listeners permission to suck, to be imperfect when starting out on this. And I'm sure you resonate with that too. Hey,
Totally, totally. I love that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you gotta suck a little bit here and there and then I say suck less.
yeah, as you go, right? As you go. What kept you consistent when you were doing this, when you're going through the motions, when it was still not like fully in practice, when the results might be slow and you didn't feel like it was working yet, and of course the doubt comes in and the uncertainty about the journey. What kept you consistent to keep making those steps forward for you? Anything come to mind?
The the things that kept me consistent, well, I was seeing the results and I was always happy with the results, but never satisfied. And maybe that's just my entrepreneurial spirit saying that I want more and I know I can get more. So just keep going because when you get more, you'll love it more and maybe you'll want more than that. And that's what keeps me pushing forward but I don't neglect the 10 years ago Ed mentality, right? 10 years ago, Ed would have killed to be in this position that I am in today. And
Mm.
maybe today I would kill to be 10 years from now, wherever I'm going to be. Hopefully, it's a good place. with my family, with my loved one, whoever that might be, my just traveling. We'll see. Um, that was one part of it. But two, I have my parents are immigrants, from Slovakia, Czechoslovakia, and they came to America with hopes to reaching the American dream, just, honestly speaking. And knowing that they came here, they sacrificed so much to give to me, to give to their own life, to push forward and see how far they can get. I feel like they're passing me the baton and just like, Ed, now you go. Now you fly for us and go as fast as you can, as far as you can, because now you're going to be passing the baton to your family and to your kids, whatever it might be one day. So to me, it's like, this is just a race. Let's see how far we can get as a family, as a unit, the Stulak family. Like, that's
Hmm.
how I perceive it. So in terms of consistency, like that's what keeps me consistent. I wake up knowing
Yeah.
that it's not just my American dream that I'm fulfilling, but it's also my parents. It's a legacy here.
Yeah.
Justin Peters always says legacy. And that's what I'm trying to grow here too. So it's those two things that will always keep me pushing forward. I want more. I'm happy with what I have, but I'm not satisfied. I want more. But I'm grateful for what I have because 10 years ago,
Hmm.
I would have been super grateful for what I have today. And then also family legacy. Let's go. Let's keep pushing. I'm not done.
Totally.
I'm not
That's
done.
it. It's a powerful reminder. I use the little 3 word thing called anchor your why, right? And that reminder to your purpose must outweigh the fear or the doubt. And then
Mm.
if we're talking about what courage is, I think courage isn't that we're not scared, right? It's that we act in spite of it, right? And we just know it's part of the journey. And courage is stepping in, even though we are scared and we're not sure if that's going to land. Or is that, like you said, pushing the limits? Am I going too far? Um, and I think what you just shared lands with that really, really well. So.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you stay and keep that courageousness to stay visible, like to stay so real, man? Because, like, again, here you are nearing, I don't know, you've got a lot of followers, you put out a lot of content, and most of your business is that way. To stay super real while being visible, um, that's not an easy task, isn't it? Right? All the wins, the losses, the wackiness, the goofiness, whether you're out with the boys and it's party time too, or how do you stay real while being visible? Especially now that you've got that international global keynote speaker title behind you.
Solid. I love that perspective. And uh honestly, just it's just going back to that I do what I want and what makes me happy. So I know that when I create the content that I want to, it's also content that others want for me to create.
Mm,
That real, that authentic, that transparent, that goofy guy, like that's just who I am. And I know that that makes certain people feel good and then certain not. I know there's people listening and watching me and see my name and they're just bad negative energy. I know it's existent. I would be foolish for me to say, no, there's no haters in this world. No, there are. And I love them. And I'm going to kill them with kindness every single day because that's who I am. And if they
mm,
don't like my content, that's what it is. And they'll hit me with negative comments and they'll send me messages and it's okay. Listen, I'm not Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber probably gets this every single day, every single moment. So when I think about a celebrity's perspective and what they go through and how they are willing to handle it, I look at our problems. I'm like, we're chump. We're nothing. We have no problems compared to what they have when it comes to this aspect, of course, of the social media world, the branding world, of what they create, what they put out there. Taylor Swift gets it all the time too, but yet there are certain people that love her for what she's created. And listen, I gotta give her some credit. She's created some very good tunes. I love it. Do I believe in her, political views or maybe her religious view or this or that? It doesn't matter. She will still put out who she is, right? So when I look at their perspective or try to look at their life through their eyes, which is hard to do, but I try, I look at mine, I'm like, oh my God, I actually don't have that many problems. I'm good.
mm.
So I will create what I want. I know it's real. I know it's authentic. And I know people need to hear it from time to time too. So if I'm just constantly putting out the good, 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 people are, where's the bad? Because we all go through bad. And if you show the bad, maybe they'll feel like, wow, I can relate to this person. And that
Yeah.
relatability aspect now increases. My approachability increases. Now they're willing to reach out to me. Now conversations are starting. And now business is rolling in. That's how I actually perceive my formula online. I don't post to think, if I post now, I'm going to get 14,000 views. I'm going to get 14 leads from this. I'm going to get 2 people conversing with me, and I'm going to get 1 sale. I don't talk that way. I don't look that way. I post. If it makes someone feel good and look good and whatever, that's all I care for. And then if they reach out to me, we start conversations. That's my thought process on a daily basis. Of when I click record and I post and I edit it,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what will this do? Will this be good? Will it be bad? Could I have said it more authentically? Could I have said it better? Should I have said it louder? Should I have said it softer? Should I have said it so it's overthinking to a ninth degree, but also not.
So you get called to go and speak, and now you're doing a keynote, and then you run the circuit, and you've been a part of events I've been a part of, and we travel to be on stages, and then you get called on a bigger stage, and then you get the call to go overseas, and you're like, oh my goodness, you know, yes, your whole world has been online here and fair. So you would assume that Ed Stulak has some confidence in that ring of exposure, right? But does imposter syndrome come into the mix a little bit when all of a sudden you're flying overseas to Malta to have a keynote for the world's largest real estate brand over there? Tell me about that. How do you handle that?
Mm. I don't, I just do. I don't know. To me, it's like they see some value in me enough to fly me out and to have me come and speak to their people, to their culture, to their community, to their brokerage, to their company. And all those people there obviously need some type of help, and they feel like I have that solution. So to me, it's another day. It's just another day of me speaking what I think I do well. I'm not an expert. I don't call myself a master, but I call myself, kind of like I know some stuff. So I'll go and teach you this because you obviously want it. So for me to go there, I don't know. I just go out with my chest out, my head up. I'm happy. I'm high. I'm like, so let's go. Let's do this. Like, what can we do? I'm so excited to give back to you. What do you need specifically? Right. And it's also those meetings that we have before I hop on stage because I care. So I meet with the CEO, I meet with their president, I meet with their social media crew. And I'm like, what do you guys go through? Because I'm speaking tomorrow at 3 p.m. to your people. There's 200 people in there. What's going on? What do you feel like is the most important thing? What do you feel like needs improvement? What do you feel like you want to see better in the future of what your company? And they tell me this stuff. And there I am that night later on revising my whole presentation because I'm like, everything I had written out, they don't want to hear. So I'm like, okay, scrap that. Let's do this now. They want to talk about this. You got it. And I
Hmm.
tailor my messaging to them because I know I can, because I know how to. But I don't know. To me, it's just fun. This is what I've always wanted to create. I've always wanted to have a business that allows me, or a career that allows me to travel and see the world and, you know, help everyone. I don't want to just help one group. I want to help everyone if I possibly can. So I don't know.
I
Maybe
think
that's just my teaching character in me.
I think what I'm hearing, because I spoke to this concept that courage for me is kind of like a muscle. It grows through motion, not mastery, right? So for you, your whole life has been, and whole business life has been in this world of exposing and sharing. So your focus on this, the consistency we talked about, the passion to keep doing it, to keep putting it out there, has placed you in a place of built that muscle to mastery. So now you're out of the three people on this podcast are a perfect example where that courage muscle has been built. You know what I mean? Where you've kind of like evolved it because of the repetitions you've done and the consistency you've created so that when the biggest stage calls, it's just one more little next step. And you are always, and it feels easy to hear, but in reality, the 14,000 steps to get here built that confidence. Does that seem about right?
Definitely is. Definitely not an overnight thing. Imposter syndrome still creeps up from time to time, but as you say, it's that courage that kind of pushes me forward and says, if I mess up, that's another thing. If I mess up on stage in Europe or wherever I am overseas, I mess up and I'll have fun with it, I'll admit it. I'll be like, you know what? I screwed that one up. I'm so sorry. I just realized that one of my last events, my title of my first slide completely spelled incorrectly. It was supposed to be something like dissected the strategy and it said strategy. I forgot the R in there. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
screw it. It's funny. I don't know English, whatever.
Love it. But dude, like a book, come on. Who puts out a book? The biggest, the baddest, the people on the planet, the masters of the universe, and they're sitting there. And Ed, little Ed, not so little, you're a big dude, comes out and drops a book. And I think that's like a year and a bit ago already. So
Yes,
like
yeah.
not even a decade in the business, right? You know what I mean? Again, there's some monsters in our craft. And here you are dropping a book in front of the world and saying, listen to me. That must have taken a moment to say, well, I know it took you a while to build it. And
Yeah.
so you had made that decision even earlier on to go through that process to say, I'm worthy of listening to in a book format, asking people to pay for is a whole different level of like confidence and courage. Tell me about that. Because even where I sit today, I'm like, would somebody even read a page I wrote? Right. And tell me about that. Because that very
Yeah.
few in our industry ever do that.
Well, the way you started off this podcast, you're such a storyteller. I'm like, this should be a book. I was thinking to myself, you're a poet of your words there. You're good. You know what you're doing. So yeah, I would be a reader. Trust me. You're very authentic, very genuine. You have such a good heart, and you're such a leader. Every time I see you speak, I'm always like, man, this guy is such a good-hearted and taller than me. Bigger man, always taller than me. But no, I love it. So okay, all right. The book. It took me about three and a half-ish years to put together. And but it was not my original idea, I must admit. It was someone else that came knocking on my virtual door in my DMs on Instagram and said, "Hey dude, you have a brand, you're speaking on stage here and there, you're doing some cool things. Like, why don't you have a book yet?"
Hmm.
And that self-doubt, that imposter syndrome creeped in hard back then and said, who am I to write a book? Why would someone listen to me for what? I'm no Gary Vee or Greg Cardone or Brian Serhan or Tony Robbins or Mel Robbins. I'm none of them. Why would I write a book? But then again, there are some things that I've done right. So yeah, you know what? Even if it's a short book, I'll put it together, give some value. And plus, it's cool to say that you're an author. And so what
Totally.
he said, he responded, he said, dude, I'll help you in the beginning to put it together and all that stuff because I've helped others do it. But like let's give it a shot. Let's give it a shot. I feel like you definitely need a book. I'm like, fine, I'll do it. So fast forward, he flew out from Colombia. Cool dude, lived in the States, but now moved to Colombia and comes to New York City. We get a hotel for the weekend. And when I tell you that room was filled with post-it notes everywhere, just ideas, ideas, this chapter, that chapter, no, that chapter, now take that out, rip it, this one, audio message. Like it was so much. It was such an
Oh, wow.
impactful weekend. And this is pre ChatGPT. So ChatGPT was not even in existence or a thought yet. And I'm putting this all together and he says, yeah, man, now we're just gonna put it into audios and we're gonna take that wording, we're gonna put it into text. And like he illustrated everything, the whole process for me. So he genuinely helped me in the beginning. But he said one thing that really made me pull the trigger sooner than later, and that was if you want authority, you have to become an author. The word author is in the word authority. You want authority with your brand, become an author. And it was so stupid, so silly. Like, you're so right. Like I'm trying to gain more brand, more reputation, more authority, and a good reputation for that matter. You're so right. Let's do it. So I did it. And for 3 years, the book was called Real Estate Fame, which I hated. Not a fan. I'm like, I need something better. And so I'm on a coaching call with my coach. Her name is Kim. Kim and I are chatting. I'm like, Kim, I freaking hate the book title. Like, I don't want to put it out there. And she just starts brainstorming with me, and all of a sudden she's like, it's about exposing yourself and this and that. I'm like, yo, you just said it. So we called it Expose Yourself. And immediately there and then on the spot, I knew how I'm going to market it, how I'm going to push it. And it just made sense because that's really what the book is about. It's just how to get out there to the masses through the
Yep.
power of social media. And yeah, it took me some time,
Totally.
but that's the story. That's my story of putting the book together. So
I
that,
think one of the key things you highlighted is like, and every story of courage comes back to like, we're all starting unready. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
when we start something new, I call it a swing, right? We're about to get uncomfortable. We're swinging outside of that comfort zone. Your comfort zone was a little wider, if you ever followed me. But like even the best realtors, the best speakers, the best entrepreneurs, we all begin with that doubt and that awkwardness. So
Yeah.
let's just reframe it because we all start there, right? But what separates us is we just move anyways. We move and we just go. And I think you didn't know how the whole journey would work. You didn't know it was 3 years of this. Yeah, I talk about shrinking the leap. Like, just don't plan the entire journey because that'll stall us all. That'll freak us all out, right? But just identify that next uncomfortable step, which was saying yes to Buddy in Colombia and saying, sure, let's do this thing, fly on out. And you didn't know where that would go, right? I love
No,
it.
I had no idea, but you know what? Life is short and it's my game, and I play it how I want. That's my theme.
If you had to describe courage and how it's meant to you in one, two, three words, can you think of anything that comes to mind? If it's just like courage for me in a word or two, where does your head go with that, Ed?
Guts is
Mm,
the first one.
yeah,
Gotta have guts to do something. Vision. Your vision has to pull you, and that vision also assists with courage, or well, gives courage the fuel. I'll put it that way. Vision is what gives courage the fuel. And just a desire to want to. You
yeah,
gotta want to do something. Vision is one thing,
yeah,
but like the want of I want to do this, I want to do it. Why not? And then
totally.
courage is like, all right, let's go, let's do it. You're like,
Yeah, that
"Ah,
want, I
want."
like that want versus like a lot of us realtors think we just have to do something. And then if you feel like if someone's doing it for the have to, you realize often it fails, doesn't it? Right?
The first 3 years of my real estate business were very much have to. It turned into want to. Ever since I joined Real, it has completely shapeshifted my mindset with leaders like you, leaders like Tamir, leaders like Sharon and Brad McCallum and Jason Cassidy and Megan Farrell Nelson, like so many people at this company that have reshaped my focus and give me hope that I have to become better. I have to be a better person. Leaders create leaders. And so now I'm in my 10th year of business, let's call it. And now I want to. I have a client right now. I showed him about 50 plus homes, put about 46 hours into working with them, submitted multiple offers, probably on offer eight. We finally just got an offer accepted. And he was like, dude, how did you put up with us for so long? And I'm like, I genuinely, I don't know, I just want to. It's fun. You guys make this fun. I don't mind. Yeah, I want to beat my head against the wall at some points, but you know what? I want to make this happen. Like, let's go.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
All right, well, let's leave with this. If you could leave the audience with one sentence about courage to kind of sum up this kind of thing with you and where it's landed for your world. Is there a sentence or two that we can kind of leave them with your mic drop moment?
If you don't love what you do, then change it up and start doing things that make you happy, make you feel good, make others feel good around you, because your life is going to be so much better that way. Just love the game you're playing. That's
Love it. I think it's pretty clear, guys. Ed, he proves that courage isn't just about being loud in those loud moments. It's about showing up authentically before the applause and long after the pressure sets in. So thank you, Ed, for sharing your journey and your story. And I hope everybody listen. If they don't follow you, they will have all the information to do so and just see how he's putting all of what we talked about today into practice. So thank you, my friend.
And thank you. And for my listeners, 'cause I'm going to be sharing this. If you don't follow Darren, you're missing out on a lot of good content and just a good dose of happiness every single day. You're a great leader, and I appreciate you, brother.
Amazing, buddy. See, with this, Ed proves that courage isn't just about being loud. It's about showing up authentically before that applause comes and long after the pressure starts to set in. Today's third guest The theme is vulnerable courage, truth, healing, and having the guts to speak out. This final story is one that takes more courage than most of us will ever understand. Megan Farrell Nilsen stood on stage at our annual conference and shared a truth that many would have buried deep down inside. But by doing so, she gave others permission to rise, and herself included. Megan, welcome to the show. Welcome to this special episode. Can you share a little bit of context that you feel is warranted for this, and share as much or as little as you want about that, so that we can try to honor the answers that you're going to have coming forward?
Thanks, Darren. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. And you mentioned Rise last year, where I had the opportunity to be interviewed by Tamir about my story. And my story is one that I think a lot of real estate agents can relate to some parts of it, and thankfully not all parts of it. But my story is one where I went to a conference, just like many of us do. We all are professionals. We all want to grow. We all want to network. We all want to build big businesses. And I was also interested in doing that. And I was a little over 5 years ago where I attended a conference. I was with leaders in our industry and also at the company I was at the time. And while I was at that conference, a lot of networking went on, a lot of great content, a great business planning, but also some pretty serious behavior occurred. And at that event, I was actually drugged and sexually assaulted. And upon processing that event, I guess for lack of a better word, I soon came to learn that I was not the only one who shared that story. And it had been happening in our industry for many years.
Mm. Well, Megan, that helps. I think a lot. Many of us know your story. Many of my audience have been able to be either in that audience or from afar at numerous times. So, but again, many of the people that listen to the show don't. So again, seeing and hearing what's going to come for the rest of the podcast through that lens, I think, is incredibly important. How, like, what gave you the strength? The strength, because so many have buried it, right? In this exact scenario. And I would assume the percentages are through the roof about those that bury it. What finally gave you the strength to say, no, and I am going to tell this story publicly? Because this podcast, this courage episode, you were the first one that came to mind when I thought about this.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah. So after I left the event, and as I was coming to terms with what had happened to me, another detail that I will share is that the assault that happened to me was done by one of the highest income earners at the company I was at the time. And so I knew coming forward wasn't just going to be, a phone call and hands wiped clean and everyone moves on. I knew that coming forward was going to be a battle, I guess, for lack of a better word. And I really, honestly, I think at the time when I was making a decision to speak up about what happened, I didn't know what to expect. I knew it would be difficult. I think that, sexual assault and sexual trauma is very much on display in our movies and our TV shows. And so from watching those, I guess I knew that the fight wasn't going to be easy. But had I known then what I know now, I look back and I wonder, would I have had the courage to come forward knowing how difficult it would be? But I think there's just, sometimes when you have circumstances like this that happen maybe to us, it is one of those moments, right, where we have to decide what are we going to do and how are we going to move forward. I began to speak about it, and almost instantly I had people trying to silence me about it. And it was almost like the more I spoke and the more that people tried to silence me, the more important I knew it was that I needed to speak up. And so, I mean, I did it all. I have I did all of the reporting that needs to be done, you know, speaking to the police, speaking to the company, speaking to those in charge. And I did. I think I thought like, oh yeah, something bad happened to you. You talked about it. Like you're going to get a pat on your back. And that really wasn't what happened at all.
Mm.
It was almost the opposite, actually. And so, unfortunately, or fortunately, there are other women who have had similar experiences as I did with the same people. And I really did find a lot of strength in those early days connecting with not necessarily those women as individuals, but connecting with their stories and understanding that I wasn't alone and that this had happened for so many years prior to me. And that is what almost made it the most important thing for me to come forward and speak my truth. I'll be 100% honest with you, Darren. I got a phone call from someone and she was crying and she shared with me how sorry she was for what happened to me. She listened to me share a little bit about my story and she took a deep breath and started sobbing again, apologizing and saying that if she didn't come forward, it might not have happened to me. Or if she had come forward, it might not have happened to me. And she said, Megan, I don't want to tell you what to do, but you don't want to make this phone call to the next girl. And that was another moment that was pretty impactful to me, where I realized that there are people sometimes out there in the world, and I was dealing with them, who continually would hurt people or would continually do something that could hurt people, and they weren't going to be stopped until someone stood up to them.
Yeah. I mean, I use the term when I rolled the Courage podcast out, and I was trying to give people some like frameworks to work from, right? Because it's like, and I use the term anchor your why, right? And I said a powerful reminder that your purpose must outweigh the fear. And it sounds like you had that. That sounds like a pretty core moment. But then you had these reinforcements that came in, you know, maybe silently a little bit and a little bit quieter, but more like heavy. But on top of all the critics that you said, wow, I didn't expect all of this. Because, like you said, if I knew all this was happening, would I have even done it? But you made those small steps forward. Just that sounds like such a powerful opportunity where you were constantly juggling how to keep moving because you didn't know all the steps, like you said, but then all these moments of like purpose and these like allowing you to say, I'm going to keep stepping forward because these phone calls you would get. You know, I got goosebumps as you said that.
Yeah, there's been over the years, there's been so many moments like that. And I mean, I can't even tell you, my friend's daughter asked to take me out to lunch just, I think it was about 2 years ago. And it was right after we had started the lawsuit. And I was kind of like, what am I doing? You know, this is so difficult. This is so challenging. And what's it all for? And she had sat me down at lunch and, you know, while we were sitting there, she said, hey, remember that thing that happened to you? And I knew exactly what thing she was talking about, right? And she proceeded to tell me her entire story. It recently had happened to her. She had just graduated high school and she couldn't fight and stand up to her abuser. So in that moment, it was another, like you said, like another one of those anchors. I call it like someone standing behind me and pushing, you know, when you're like slouching over, like you don't want to do something, right? You're like, ugh.
Yeah.
And like those are like the people who straighten your back up, right? Like it allows for me, it like helps me connect higher, right? It's to stand up straight, to stick out my chest, right? Like show up with a purpose. And because like you said, like this isn't just about me anymore, you know, and if I'm being honest, I don't know if it ever was, but maybe those first few moments. But now it's about me. It's about the other victims of my abusers. It's about women and girls. Honestly, it's about girls in the future too, because, as I mentioned, yes, there are abusers in this story, but there's also, a company that's stood behind them and, did what they did. And so for me, it's important about setting a standard and letting people know that women aren't going to tolerate that type of treatment from anyone.
You have expressed how there's people that are sharing their stories with you and coming up and giving you that power to like anchor that why and power that why. But yet there's got to be moments when you do feel alone. And it's even hard for me to imagine that asking it, but I have to feel like there probably is times among all of that support.
Sure. I mean, as we've discussed, this situation is very heavy. Fortunately, it's not something that many people go through on the level that I'm experiencing it. However, it's still, something that women do experience. And I felt very alone, not just in the early days, but I mean, even last week, even this weekend, I still have moments where I look around and I wonder if people, even can see me sometimes with everything I'm dealing with in my head. And in this real estate industry that's so fast paced, my agent friends that, when this all happened, we were all building at light speed and going 100 miles a minute. I feel like now they're just by me. And I'm sitting here trying to fight this battle while also living in the regular world. And there's not a lot of times in our lives where I feel like you are living with the joy and the beauty that is our real life, and also at the same time holding the hand of grief and sorrow and pain. And not just like grief pops up, but actually living with it, which I am doing because of the lawsuit. And it is a choice that I'm making. Let me be clear about that. But it doesn't mean it isn't difficult, and it doesn't mean it's not lonely. And I think there's two ways that I look at this. Like, I definitely have my moments where I feel lonely and I feel alone, where, I'm stuck here, poor me, look what I have to deal with. And there are so few people in the world that do experience what I experienced. Why would I expect anyone to understand it, right? But I can also take those moments. I like to sit there and I like to feel it. I like to sit in my yuck of loneliness, right? Sometimes, but I could transform that loneliness to solitude. And if I could just switch my mindset from a space of I am alone to I'm doing this in solitude, and I get to have a peace with this. I get to connect with Jesus, connect with God, my higher power. And, we kind of do it together. And I take a step back and I can realize that, like, this is a part of what's creating me to be me, right? And there is a bigger purpose, I trust, in the future that this whole experience will serve. But while I'm going through it, instead of feeling alone, I transform that to doing this with solitude, and to really turning inward and asking, like, what am I supposed to learn from this moment, right? And there have been some pretty awful things said. There have been some pretty, just horrible things I've had to hear or read. And in those moments, I wonder, like, what is the point of this? And how is this making me better? How does this make me a better leader? How does this make me a better mom? And a lot of that has to do with being able to alchemize those yucky, lonely feelings to something better and turning into something good.
That's a pretty powerful reframe, actually, from that lonely to solitude. And there's when we think that word, and it's like there's power in that. So you kind of answered the second part of the question in the first one, because that's the how. How do you, when you are lonely, you've done that. I love the reframe, and I think we can all learn a lot from that
For the
because
how piece, I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that
no,
how
go
piece
for
is
it.
important, right? Because I mean, even if you do it once, like we've all felt yuck, right? We've all felt like we've got a seller that canceled on us. That's not a fun feeling to have either, right? But if you can take those moments where, that seller just fired you and maybe you did do a bad job. Maybe you did, right? Like sometimes we do, we're all humans. If you
Totally.
can take that yuck feeling, sit in it for a minute, kind of figure out what is it? Are you angry? Are you whatever? Now make a list of those words that you're feeling in that moment. Make a list of the reasons why you're feeling that way. Maybe go for a walk, take a break, come back to it a day or two later, and then look like, okay, what can I learn from this? How do I take myself out of this space of ick and bring it to something more productive? Because we do face these every day, right? Sometimes it's at a traffic light. We all know how traffic hits us on certain days differently than others,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like your tolerance of discomfort, you can really tell how you're feeling based on how you respond to traffic, right? So,
Isn't that the case?
but sometimes you're at a traffic light and you're like, cool, I needed a break from, the monotony of driving straight nonstop. And then other times you're frustrated about it. It's a similar experience, right? Obviously, I'm
Oh
significantly
sure.
the level, but it's the same thing. When those feelings come up, sit with them for a minute. It's a muscle, right? To
Totally.
alchemize. So yeah, but like I said, it's not easy. It's not something that is done on the first try. But when you're in those situations, whether it's like I said, the seller firing you, someone hiring their aunt instead of you, take all of those opportunities and we can change them. And you'll start to notice too, like next time you get fired from a seller, you're going to be like, they just released me to go focus on something different. And so you'll start to notice your mindset shifts a little bit.
I use the message in the podcast that courage is a muscle and that it grows with motion, but we only get motion if you're willing to move, right? And so I love that you said that. How has stepping into this courage, stepping into this craziness that you had no idea truly what you're getting yourself into, which is most of the time when we step into something new, yours just happens to be so large and with so many layers. How has that changed the way you're even leading your business and your life now? Because I know you are a changed person, and I can, and the way you're living yourself out is, a big part of what you've decided to do. How is stepping into the courage now giving you some new concepts and look on life and business?
Well, I am fortunate enough that I have a business partner in my real estate business, and that's my husband, Brady. He is an amazing partner. He can run the team without me. And fortunately for me, that has allowed me to take a step back from work. And so as I am, what was your question? I'm so sorry.
So how is the courage that you've had to jump into this and has now changed how you lead?
That's it.
Yeah, in your business and or your life, because of course something like this, as large as this is, the courage you had there's a new you now, right?
So fortunately, I have a partner in my real estate business, and that's my husband, Brady, and he's fantastic. I'm so grateful to have him and very lucky to have him. But because of that, I've been really able to focus on putting things into my schedule that make me happy. And it really kind of, as I've regrouped into running my business and how I want to run my business after, living in a world where I'm also in a lawsuit, I guess, for lack of better terms, I prioritize joy a whole lot more.
Mm.
And so I'm constantly assessing how much do I like this activity I'm doing, and not to the point where I'm like, oh, that's boring. I don't want to do that. No, I get uncomfortable, right? Like I still let myself get uncomfortable, but I do prioritize joy. I make sure the activities I like doing, I love shooting content. I love social media marketing. Those are activities I'm doing. I also know what's important to make me feel good. I, through this, have done a lot of therapy. And one of my therapists gave me this activity many years ago, and it was to watch the movie Soul. Have you ever seen the movie Soul?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
It's a Pixar animated movie.
Oh, I have seen it. Yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah, right? Yeah, so it's an animated movie. Let me just tell you, Darren, I was very unhappy when my therapist, who has how many degrees, told me to watch this Pixar movie. I was like, this is dumb. This isn't gonna do anything, but whatever, I'll watch it. I was mad though. So he told me, you're gonna watch the movie, go through the sparks. Like they look to find the soul, looks for their sparks. So if you don't know the movie, it's a little lost soul, and they get sent to Earth to meet with a person to help them find their sparks. Well, throughout the movie, they're looking for sparks, and really what they're looking for is they're looking for, in quotes, sparks, but they're looking for purpose.
Mm.
And during the movie, you kind of get to see that we as humans seek purpose, and really it's not about a single perfect purpose, it's about little sparks throughout your life. And so at the end of the movie, the two characters ended up being pulled apart in a not pleasant way, and the one character was missing its little lost soul and stuck its hand in its pocket, pulled out. He had a pizza crust, a lollipop stick, one of those little spinny things that come from the trees.
Oh, yeah.
And it was all like the little things in life that bring us joy, right? Like a slice of pizza on a day, like walking down, just grab a slice, right? A little lollipop at the bank or after a haircut, those little tiny things that bring us joy. And those little spinny things that come out of the tree, they just cause us to pause. And that was an activity that I had to then do, was go back to my life and look at what are my sparks. And I learned that my sparks are meaningful relationships. So I spend a lot of time with my husband. It is intentional time. We work together, but we also get to spend quality time together. We have a date day. It's 3 hours a week that we block off during when the kids are at school. So it's not even, if you don't have to worry about a babysitter or anything, it's while they're at school, we have that time. I also know that the sun is one of my sparks. And so if I'm feeling down, I'm like making sure I'm out in the sun. Those things are important for me. And as I've re-entered my business, I just know that I need to make sure that I'm focusing on what creates joy for my life. I also am a lot more gracious, and I give people a lot more grace than I used to. I used to be pretty, I'll say it, I was a little difficult. I had high expectations, right? And so I still have high standards, but my expectations can match to meet the humans that I'm working with, because we're all just humans. I check for intent, right? I don't assume that everyone's out to be angry or they're running late. It's to ruin my day. I check intention behind people. And so, the ways that my business have changed are that I'm prioritizing joy. I'm giving people more grace, the grace that I would like to receive. And, I'm just making sure that I'm just showing up to meet people where they're at as well. And just, I don't run it all about dollars anymore. It's more about the people.
Right. I mean, the list of things that you just shared that you've like put into practice from in your case, this decision to have courage to stand up and share something so difficult, so, which is like a zillion times more than what an average realtor just has to, think about. Okay, will I start and will I shoot that first video, right, Megan? Right? It's just like, will I get behind the camera for once? But like the weight of all those amazing things you just shared back to me about like how you're living life that way, that is a crazy spin on upside that is just so like, again, it's really even hard to comprehend all these like amazing kind of like things that you didn't really know would come on the backs of stepping over that threshold at once upon a time. And then here you are living with these cool things that should give everybody like the largest bit of inspiration to say, probably not likely as scary of a leap as Megan's had to take. You know what I mean? So
Yes. I would say probably not likely, but it's
Yeah.
still, it's an interesting thing though, because as I have shared my story, I have heard many times, well, it's not as bad as what you're going through, or, but it's not like your situation. And I do want to be super mindful to remember, like everybody has stuff, right? Everybody has it. And your level of tolerance is only where your level of tolerance is, right? So, like, yeah, you haven't been through what I'm through, but still, it might be the worst thing you've ever been through.
Yep.
And in kind of like what we were saying before, as we're going through these situations as agents that do come up and are difficult, like the first time getting fired from a seller sucks. The second time getting fired from a seller, it sucks. The third time, you probably know you're getting fired at that point.
Right.
You have fired them, right? So it's all about just building as you're going and learning that, like, things are bad, right? They can be bad, but that doesn't have to be the worst ever. And as I said earlier, I think, I said this has to be preparing me for something, right?
Totally.
Like, this has to be preparing me for something better. And I think if we can constantly think about that in our businesses when we go through those challenging times, like, what is this preparing me for? And yes, it's not the same scale that we're talking about with what I'm going through, but maybe it's the first time someone is abrupt with you on the phone, right? And they're giving you pushback over setting a listing appointment. You're going to get better at the phone, and then you get in person, right? And then you get better at in person, and then you get a higher price point, and then you get better at that price, and you keep growing. So going through those situations, you're always building muscles, and it's always leading you to the next point in your business. And that is one of the coolest parts about real estate, is that this industry can take you anywhere, and whatever direction you're going.
People are going to listen to this, and in the show notes, we'll talk about all of the ways for people if they want to explore more about your story and the things that are out there, and unpack it. And just if you feel connected, I'm sure Megan's very available. What would you say to somebody, Megan, listening right now that hasn't found the words to share their story, hasn't had that courage to go? And again, what do you say to that? I'm sure you're having these conversations a lot.
Yeah, well, I think, if I could just tell them one thing really quick, one little snippet, I would just remind them to trust themselves. And to trust yourself fully. And that could be really tough, especially if your story mirrors mine in any way. Being able to trust myself again that might be one of the most difficult battles that I face almost daily. But you can trust yourself. That's the truth, right? We know that we have that knowing inside of us, especially when we connect into our higher power. We know we can trust ourselves. And so my suggestions, if you have a story and you need to share it with someone, one, start in a safe space. Find someone trusted to share it with first, and make sure that you don't just give the rights to your story to just anyone. Stories are sacred, and there is so much that we can learn from each other's stories. I like to think of it as sharing a light, sharing a candle. Darren, if your light is out, maybe I share my story with you and provide you a little light. I still have my light, and you have yours now. So that's one of the ways I look at stories. So I think they can be very powerful, but that doesn't mean you go around lighting everyone's candle.
Yeah.
And so I think if you can find a safe place to start sharing, and if you have a story similar to mine, I would definitely also recommend talking with a professional as you process through some of that stuff. There's so many different types of professionals. That could be a counselor, that could be, someone at your church, that could be lots of a coach. But I definitely think, learning to trust yourself again, and checking in and trusting yourself, and knowing that you have the discernment on what to share and what not to share. And you have the people around you that you can trust. I think that's really important. And then once you do, I can confidently say that every single time, out of every time I've shared my story, this particular one in the last 5 years, I've maybe gotten a handful of negative feedback, and to my face anyway. But I think when you do share your story and you shine your light, there's a lot of people who will connect with you, and a lot of positivity and healing and joy that comes from that, if you just put yourself in the right places.
It's a pretty powerful moment, just that the visual of you with the light and the candle, right in the darkness, all by yourself, and it's gonna light up portions of the room, and then you've got that one opportunity, and then it's like you haven't taken anything away from yours, but you've lit up this thing, and the room expands now. And then, you and I have probably both been in churches where you continue to do that, and then all of a sudden you've got this whole lit up room, and it just continues to go, right? So I guess we don't need to know the entire roadmap when you're looking to just make that first pivot, to make that first moment to light that next candle, because it will eventually unfold, right?
Well, and I think too, just right off of that, is you also never know who you'll impact from your story and the ripple effect that it can have. And there's been many times where I thought, I often pray before I share it. And there's many times where I share it and I'm like, oh, that was the stupidest detail. Why did I say that detail? And, an hour and a half later, I get a message that was like, oh, this one detail that you said really resonated with me. And I'm like, that was so random. I didn't even know why I said it. And so, there sometimes, like, we don't even know what words will impact others and what piece of our story will impact others. But I truly believe, I've sat in enough rooms to know that stories change the world, period.
Love
And
it.
if you can find the words to share it, and I will say this too, with sharing your story, we talked a little bit about how I shared my story at Rise.
Yeah.
And in a room that had a capacity to hold like 1,500 people, and that was nerve-wracking. And I fortunately knew about that in advance, and I prepared. I hired a coach. I joined Toastmasters immediately when Tamir asked me, and I started working on that skill set, because I knew that to share this story and to do justice to not just my story, because so many others share the story with me, I needed to make sure that I had the skills in speaking as well. And not just speaking because it's a topic that is difficult to talk about, but having the skills to deliver things. And I think too, like, this is something in our industry that is important too, is we can have it all inside of our heads. And I know my story, right? I've lived it.
Yeah.
But sometimes to get it out to others, to help people, we have to focus on those skills.
Totally.
And so, yeah, I think it's important when you're sharing your story, and any people facing business industry like we're in, having those skills to be able to get what's in your head out is very important.
Well, when we talk about storytelling, you can't tell a story without a word or two, right? So that leads me to one of my last questions that I'm asking everybody. And you can, if you were to describe courage to you in like a word or two words, anything that comes to mind when you think courage, blank.
Mine's personal. But when you had this question, the first thing I wrote down was that it kept me alive.
Mm.
And do you know the difference between courage and bravery?
Courage and bravery. No, you tell me.
It is the intention behind it.
Mm.
And so bravery, people are often seen as brave when they do things that are perceived to be scary.
Right.
But, like for someone who's a professional skydiver, I might look and be like, wow, they're so brave. They do it 16 times a day. That's nothing for them, right? So for them, that's not really a brave action. Courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Right.
And so for me, as I mentioned, sharing my story has been extremely difficult, but it's also kept me alive. Because in silence, I would have felt alone and lonely. But when I share my story, I can take that silence and I can change it to or that loneliness and change it to something different. And I can find my community and find my truth. And I can learn to trust myself again. And I can share deep, scary, vulnerable truths because I have that community that is there to listen and not judge. And when I'm able to share, and that community has grown from that small trusted group to now I post about it on my social media pages, and that's open to anybody to see.
Yeah.
But, like I went through a period where I was suicidal. I've actually gone through a couple of periods now where I have been suicidal since the first assault, since being assaulted. And the reason I say that it's kept me alive is because whenever I get to those points of low, I share that. I share it with my husband. Hey, I'm not feeling so great. I share it with my best friend. And as soon as I share it, 5-minute conversation, 10-minute conversation, it's gone.
Mm.
And I no longer have to carry it anymore. But that might have taken me 3, 4, 5 days of like feeling yucky to myself, not sharing it, and feeling so much shame with it, right? But because I'm able to share honestly and openly, and because I'm able to receive feedback and know that my story helps others, and because at the end of the day, I'm trusting myself again. I'm falling in love with myself again by being who I am and seeing who I am fully. And that is a really special thing that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't taken that first step almost 5 years ago to speak out about this.
Wow. So we're going to stay with one word because that's all we need to cover when it comes to that. If you could leave one sentence or thought just about courage as a whole, and it can relate to your story if it feels compelling, or if it's just what you've learned about that courage versus bravery, what would that be for those, right? Because we've got folks leaning into potentially telling their story that might be listening to this, but also we've got folks that are just step one, courage is not happening in their life. You know what I mean? We can't even talk about anything else unless we have that courage to move, do we? Right? If we don't move, we're stagnant, right? So, any one or two sentence leave behinds for that.
Trust yourself fully. Just trust. If you're wrestling with something, check in with yourself. Trust yourself. If you don't quite believe in yourself yet, to step forward, borrow that belief from someone else. I didn't believe in myself to step on that stage, but Tamir asked me, and I respect Tamir, right? So obviously I'm going to borrow his belief in me to get me onto that stage. And so sometimes sharing our stories, it is terrifying, right? Or sometimes making that call can be terrifying, or knocking on that door, or, whatever you're facing in your business. But if you can search around you, find someone who believes in you, and then trust yourself fully to do what you know you need to do, I think you can't go wrong with that.
That's pretty amazing. I love that. See, it's pretty apparent, you guys, that Megan teaches us that courage isn't about being unafraid, right? It's about speaking even when your voice is shaking. It's about doing that. And in doing so, she sparked a ripple effect of healing, honesty, and hope. And again, we don't know where that moment of courage is going to finally lead, but we do know what it's creating in that ripple along the journey. And you can hear it in her, you can see it in her. And I'm just so honored you were able to spend this moment with us to share, and unpack what courage has done with you. So thank you so much, Megan, for your time and sharing your story and allowing us to be part of it. So
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Darren. It's been so much fun.
3 stories, 3 voices, 1 truth. Courage comes in many forms, but it always leaves a substantial mark. Tamir built a company before anybody saw it. Ed built a brand by showing up 1 video at a time. Megan built a legacy by telling the truth. So maybe the real question isn't, do I have courage? Maybe it's, where is courage asking me to show up right now? Because you're only 1 decision away from a completely different life. They just proved it. And sometimes it starts with a simple whisper that just says go. Thank you for being here for 100 episodes. The journey's just beginning, and I hope, like every one of today's guests, you'll find the courage just to keep walking.